Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm shoveling compost, getting a big workout. I'm slowly working through this. We've got our sorting through our timber, got our steel away, picking through stuff, getting everything packed away. And we're just getting up the mesh. And this is an old gate from the very first year. I had layers in the small polytunnel, so that's going to fit in there. And we just get this meshed off, mesh up as close to the plastic as we can without being too close that it might head off it. And yeah, just keep at it, keep moving bits out at a time. I'm getting along nicely with my polytunnel, so I have to remember the function of the space is to keep my old flock of layers happy and healthy and safe for about 4 weeks. So that's all it's got to do. So these are my old roost supports, but I don't need that many roosts, so I just literally drove a couple of stakes in the ground, stuck them on. There's more than enough there for the birds. Now I need to make nest boxes. Now I don't want to spend any money, and my winter nest boxes was a big elaborate system, and it's not worth going to the effort of putting it all together. It's like a day's work in it. So this is actually on the farm when we moved here. It was in one of the sheds. It's a rickety old shelf, but I think this is going to make a perfect no cost roll-away nest box. All it's got to do is keep the eggs clean, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it up. I don't know, I might make 3 tiers or 2 tiers. I'm just going to lift it up so the eggs can roll slightly back. I'll use my nest mats, and then all I got to do is make like a little partition in here that'll keep the eggs away from the chickens, and I think it'll be perfect. It's only got to work for 4 weeks, so I'm literally going to put no money and maybe an hour of my time into making this work, and I think it should be fine. This is the definition of rough and ready, but you can see I've just put a little beam right through because I want this to be the nest box. So I'm going to put a piece of this black quarry board now up to the roof here, so the eggs will roll out and underneath there. Chicken's going to lay here. Do the same down here, and then just cover it all around the sides and the back with the quarry board as well. And I'll just leave the back here some way that I can flip it up, and I'll come in and grab the eggs from here. These were all bits of, this is old timber. This was actually an old roost. It's pretty much junked anyway, because some of them got damaged when we were taking the roosts apart. You can see here, like it's broken like this here, so we're just cutting off good bits. So it's like reusing. I've spent €0 on this, and it's going to actually do a perfect job. Like if I was homesteading, this would work totally fine. But the key is little time, or put in a small amount of time, no money, and it actually functions the exact same as my other nest mats. So let's get it done. I'm just working on the nest boxes in there and got her happy out, and it's a beautiful morning. It's really cold, but it's the last. There's not an air in it, and I'm just looking out at the water down there, and it is calm. So I think I might try and get out fishing. High tide is 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I might try and catch a couple hours before high tide, see if there's anything biting, get some pollock, some coalies this time of year. So I might try and push on, get this done, and get out there. It's a beautiful morning, just heading out to, sun's coming up, just heading out to do a bit of fishing, catch some fresh fish maybe. It's a really nice calm day, so thought I may as well get in a bit of fishing while I can, because you don't get many days this time of year where the sea's nice and calm like this. So I'm going to get out there and see if we can get some fish. Okay, we're getting there. We got our roosts, we got our nest box all finished. So we got 2 tiers, and to close it at night, I just, real cheap, I just move these here, sit in there, boom. Chickens can't get in, and during the day goes here, and then to collect my eggs I just lift this out of the way. That black flap just folds up. I collect my eggs. I've got lights hooked up. You can see I've got some lights here, some lights up here. I'm just checking them because my issue is at 6 o'clock in the morning chickens are going to want to lay, but it's pitch black. So I have the lights shining this way, so the nest box stays still black, so they're kind of shining down here, so they show where the nest boxes are. I like to light up the corners because they'll lay in the corners if they're dark enough. And I find just a little bit of light like that, they come on at 6 o'clock, so they've like 2 hours of light in the morning. Does the trick. Most of my birds this time of year, most of my birds are done laying by 8 o'clock. At least 85% of them have all laid. I've just covered this all and put a little door here, and birds are only going to be in here for like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks tops. So I think it's going to be a perfect little home. I just got to run in the water, put up a feeder for them. I'm going to hang a couple of circular feeders from here, and job's a good one. These guys are in their new home, and quite noisy, but the nest boxes are just about doing the job. You can see the eggs are rolling away. Some of these guys are actually moving on over the next week or so anyway. There's 200 left in this group, and some of these guys, they'll be moving on as the weeks go on now. As I find new homes for them, we'll be moving them on. It's a little bit noisy in here, I'll move outside, but I just want to talk about winter housing and a few of my thoughts on it. And so, as you can see in there, it looks pretty crowded. There's 76 square meters in there. So that's like, what's that, is 2.7 birds per square meter. And about no more than 3 birds per square meter is what I'm comfortable with housing poultry. Like, I really don't want to house poultry, to be honest. I want to get away in my longer term. I suppose it comes down to my 3 main goals. Ecologically, I don't want, like, that's not good for those birds. It's cruel. You know, it's animal cruelty in my opinion, what I'm doing. But then I also have to look at my other 2 goals, which is economical and social. My customers want eggs all year round, and I need the money as well. So I'm not in a position to just say, no, I'm not doing pastured eggs, or I'm not doing eggs in the winter time, but that's where I kind of want to get to in the longer term. So to compensate for that, I realize I don't go above 3 birds per square meter in winter housing. Now, put that into perspective. Organic standards is 6 birds per square meter, so double the birds, and free range is 9 birds per square meter. So I could put 684 birds in there to the department's free range standards and meet all the other stuff they need, but that is just absolute animal cruelty in my opinion. And that's why I'm having this issue where I'm moving away. Like, I moved away from wanting to get registered with the department, because to be honest, I feel their regulations support animal cruelty. You know, they come out here saying they're trying to the animal welfare issues is what's their priority. I mean, that's a load of nonsense in my opinion. If that was the case, they wouldn't be promoting intensive poultry farming, which is what they're trying to regulate. So that's my take on it. So I don't want to be associated with that, and I want to move away from that. So that's why I kind of dropped wanting to register my egg packery and get registered as an egg producer. Just don't want to be affiliated with it. I've got my standards, and I got to hold myself accountable to them. So if you're thinking about doing layers like this, a kind of rule of thumb I found now, and that's here in Ireland in my context, I don't like to go above 3 birds per square meter. You'll run into problems. I'll almost guarantee it. I've talked to quite a few people I know, and that have been doing this for a few years, and they would kind of concur. If you keep the stocking rate lower, you're going to have lower stress in the birds, and it's, you know, you can't imagine. I don't know if you've ever been inside a commercial poultry house. Like, it blows your mind how intensive it is. You know, there's just chickens everywhere, and that is not good in my opinion. These are my thoughts now, of course. So that's why that's what I do what I do, and that's why I'm trying to get to where I want to go. But all this takes time, you know, to get to the end goal. It's pretty dark. These guys are going to struggle to see, but I've just picked up my new layers, my pullets, and I do this in darkness because the birds are much calmer. And if we walk down here, I'll show you. I know you can't see very much, but I'm just taking them off the trailer, putting the crates on the wheelbarrow, wheeling them down here. I can see it, but you just can't. But once we get into the egg mobile here, nice and calmly, we bring them down and we start to put them in here, and you can see they're already popping up in the roosts. I've got another few crates to get in, but that's what I do, just nice and calmly take them down, and I just drop them in here. and there's 15 in a crate, so by the time I go to get another crate, these 15 have started to walk away. And it's nice and calm, and the birds, these are extremely nice looking birds. I think some of the best birds I've ever got. I'll show you more in daylight, but yeah, that's the process. I need to go and just keep hustling here and get them all in. The next morning, and I'm just cleaning off my poultry crates. These crates are really handy. I really like these ones too. These come out of Italy, from the same company that I get my egg crates from. I bought them quite a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago I think it was. But they're really high. They're 300 mil. They're 300 mil from outside to outside. Typically, these are the typical size of crates you normally get, and they just give the birds so much more headroom, which is great. I typically can get 15. I can get 18 layer pullets in here, 15 fully grown layers, or 10 broilers is what I can get to these crates, and they're just dead handy for moving poultry around. Now I think these cost me at the time, I know they were like 11.50 each plus shipping, but shipping was like 360 euros for the pallet. So I split an order with a friend of mine and we filled the pallet to the roof. If you're to buy these, they're like 50 odd quid, I think, maybe more. But they worked out at like 20 quid each at the time, bearing in mind that was a few years ago as well. So I got a good deal on them. I think I've got like 15 in total, so it means I can move like over 200 birds every time, which is handy when you're trying to when you're dealing with bigger poultry numbers like I do. It's not a must, but it definitely makes life easier. These guys are settling in. So I'm just charging up my battery there because these guys have come off 16 hours of artificial light, so I want to reduce that a bit. I'll probably take it down to like maybe 13 hours, but I can't do that drastically. I got to do it slowly. I just don't want them on so much intensive light. I don't believe it. That's just my belief, you know. It's completely up to, if you keep your own chickens, it's completely up to you what you do. I just want to stay more in tune with the seasons. I'll keep them in here for today. I won't let them into the polytunnel at all because I want them to understand this is home. So I'll probably keep them in here today, and then tomorrow I'll let them have the polytunnel as well. And I'll probably have to put the lights come on in here in the evening to get them, entice them back in from the polytunnel. And once they establish this is home, this is where we sleep, then everything's good. So they've got feed and water in there, and it's a big change for these guys. Big, you know, they would have came from a house of probably 20,000 birds, in their batch. All their peers would have been about 20,000. So they're going to have a bit of adjustment and then get settled in. So I've decided I'm going to do a better job of my composting. This is currently my compost pile, and it really needs to get turned and covered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a compost bay with pallets, probably all the way up to maybe here, and put all this in it. And then I'll create another bay to this side of it, and that'll get turned in there. And maybe I'll put in a third bay, and then so that'll be our system. The compost will just get moved along, and then this will be ready compost. It's easy for me to pull a cover over the top of it, but yet leave it nice and breathable around the sides. And I can also just keep adding pallets, and it's going to be a way better system than what I'm doing. I'm just getting a wee bit more serious about making better compost because the system I'm using just takes a long time, and I'd rather get it composted in a year as opposed to like the 2 years it takes me currently just leaving it sitting there, because it doesn't get turned, there's no air getting in there. So hopefully this will be a good addition. It means I got to shovel it all by hand, but I think if I get a good system, I mean, it'll not take me that long. If I'm just shoveling it over the pallet to turn it, I mean, a couple hours and I'll bust my way through it. Or if I do an hour a day for a week or whatever it is, I'll get it done. It's more manageable that way, I think, and I'll make better compost for growing better veg in the farm, better fertility. For my winter setup, I've got my egg mobile dock to the polytunnel, and what that does is some poo builds up and underneath the egg mobile, and I just basically rake that out or shovel it out and pile it up, and it's not locked down and everything. So what I'm actually doing is I'm taking it around and I'm putting layers of it through the compost as well, just to get that in there as well, and that'll start a breakdown. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this job as well. You can see there I've put a rope across between the pallets because as I go up, it's going to naturally want to push out, and so that'll keep it tied together. And yeah, I should have done this a long time ago. It's just one of those things, you know. It's farming. I've been really focused on the economics, but on the economical goal of the farm. But this is a time now where I come around to the ecological and the social, and so making some really good quality compost is going to be a really good ecological thing for the farm. It's also going to be really good for my family because we can use that to grow, you know, vegetables. We can spread it on the pasture. So all around, I should have in hindsight, which is always a great thing, I probably should have prioritized this, but I was shying away from it. That's just human nature for me, I think. You know, as I try my best, but there's always these things that we put in the long finger or whatever. I think it's a common trait for humans, and I'm no different. This compost is absolutely teeming with life. See, there's every time there's worms absolutely everywhere in it. Now it's a little bit wet. Now this, I can squeeze. I mean, it's almost perfect. I can squeeze it and no water runs out, but it still feels damp. You know, it clumps together. And this has been sitting out pretty much since May. You can even see over there. Looking, these guys are working away. And it's been rained on, so this has probably got like, I'd say 2 foot of rain on it, and it's just about right now. So when I turn it and put it in here, I'm going to cover it so it doesn't get wet anymore. I think the moisture it's had now should be good for another 3-4 months, and I'll turn it again. So in the compost here, I've stuck a pipe in, but in the bottom of this pipe is a thermometer, and quite difficult for you to see there, but it was at 10 degrees when it was actually lower. It was on about 7 degrees when I put it in, and it's up now over 15. So the turnover is bringing it back to life, and I'll keep this pipe in here, and it means I get an accurate temperature what the compost is doing right in the core. So I would work all that. I could get a big long, that's just a compost thermometer. I think it's 450 mil long. I could get a big longer thermometer, but I'm too stingy, and I have that anyway, so I just use the pipe here to kind of extend my reach of the thermometer. It works for me. I've actually got a couple of these compost thermometers. They're like 1.5 foot long, which is okay for small scale composting, but when you're making bigger piles like this, you want to get an idea what's in temperature in the core. I find this works best. The other thing I have toyed about with the idea, but I just don't have any here, is putting some maybe like land drainage pipe through the center to let air flow through the center of it. It would just mean I could get away longer without turning it, but maybe I'll trial that some other time. That's a good sign here, compost pile. These guys are definitely busy at work. And I think I'm just on a tiny bit on the wet side, so this is, if I had done this a month ago, I think I'd have been keeping this in optimum condition, but I didn't care about it a month ago. I'm just in the polytunnel here, and yes, bears with me. And so I moved the old layers out of here about 6 days ago, and now the new hens will be coming in here. But I'm just focusing on the bedding. As you can see, I'm turning it over a little. What I've seen is, what happens with this is you very quickly could just get a matted layer on top, but if you dig through it, you've got like good wood chip down there again. So to try and not get, what I'm afraid here is if I keep putting down wood chip, it's going to be too much carbon, not enough nitrogen in it. And I've seen people, I'm just using a fork here and just turning over the top couple inches, but I think I need to get a tool, like a tiny little ripper or a little plow, basically, that you drag through this, because as you can see, it's quite loose and underneath. It's just got a little compacted layer on top, and then it's very loose. So I'm just trying to break up that top compacted layer, and basically a tiny, like a pull along harrow or a plow to dig it up is what I need to get, really. And I just come through here and break it up maybe once a week, and it'll just mean then that I'm not putting down as much wood chip. That'll obviously be cheaper, but more importantly it'll be trying to keep the carbon nitrogen ratio a bit closer, so that when we come to compost this, it will be better. But this is typically, this is what the bedding will look like when I come in the morning, and maybe a little bit darker than this because I had bedded this out when I had half the chickens out, so maybe a little browner with just more manure on it. And then every morning I put in a fresh layer of bedding. Well, that's not true. Every 2 days I put in fresh bedding, and then I skip a day. It takes about a half a bale to do this polytunnel, so I do a half a bale one day, the other half of the bale the next day, and then I miss a day, and that works pretty well. I think if I made up that little tool, I do this maybe once a week. If I made up that little tool, I could maybe even get it stretch it out to 4 days. So do a bale, do a half a bale today, pull the rake through tomorrow, do a half a bale. A rake kind of moves too much, a rake's moving too much material. You want literally like a little tiny little hand pulled plow, or multiple ones, like a little digger that you would put I'm talking about like a digger, what people refer to as a ripper or digger that you would pull after a tractor. That kind of disturbance you want on the top layer, because this is kind of starting to compost underneath, and if we go rooting it up and inverting it, it's probably not going to be ideal. So I'm just making it up here as I go along, but this system makes pretty good compost for me. One thing I have been finding is the more work and attention I pay now when it's in the bedding pack here, the easier it is to compost then when we actually pile it up. I'm such an idiot too. When you analyze it with a child's logic, here I am, I'm spent like 2 days shoveling compost here. I spend all this time and effort trying to manage to mimic nature. I'm trying to create a bedding that mimics the soil, that locks down the nitrogen with the carbon and everything else, and make compost to then grow vegetables and spread it in my soil. When if I look around the corner here, the sun's pretty bright, but it's such a backward way of thinking. A child would say, well, why not just let it be the way it should be? Leave the animals on the pasture like my goats. I'm going to spin you around now, you're going to be in the sun, but goats are grazing away down here, and really all this hard work I'm doing is down to my own stupidity. Focusing on building really healthy topsoils. I wouldn't need compost. I could turn my pasture into vegetable production for whatever vegetables I need, and every year, and like maybe rotate it every couple of years, because obviously growing vegetables would be more intensive than pasture land. But use my animals to be building up a couple of feet of topsoil, and it won't make a difference, and I wouldn't be here like an idiot shoveling compost all the time. So, but life's not perfect, I suppose, so you gotta make the best with what you got. So here I am shoveling. This is the second eggmobile I ever built, and this is going to a new home, and I've just pretty much signed her off here. I've done a few jobs on her. It's got some serious rubber for traveling on wet ground. We'll look at them at the back. One thing I done was I had this guy mounted on here, and I just moved him over. It just gave better support. It didn't have any support. There's no lateral rib in here, whereas there's a lateral rib here, so that just sorted that out. Done a few jobs on the inside. This is these are the main working wheels, and then they're like a backup as well. They actually sit a little bit off the ground. I just never took them off. They're really a good job then. Got our door and all fixed up and looking good. Inside I installed a camera in here to see what's happening. One of the other things I done, got our lights. I doubled up the rams on the nest boxes. You can see I have one up here, one down the bottom. I found that just one ram in the middle was doing a lot of work. So by putting two on there, it'll be a good job. We've got our panel all sorted here. We've got our nest boxes. Our door open and closed. You can see now our door's opening. And down in here we got our fencer. That's our grit feeder that goes on the outside. It's our earthing rod. The one last job I have to do is put a wire that runs off to the fence. Sorry about the shadow, guys. And we also got our level on so we can level our nest boxes. You can see there. Really good design. What I really like about this design is the angle going up. It's great for the birds. If I was doing it again, what would I change? Well, what did I change? Well, I would change from wood to steel. It's way more expensive, but it's way easier to manage mites. The only other thing I maybe in this design is collecting eggs can be problematic if you're a really tall person. So if you're thinking about building an eggmobile, but all in all, it's been a really good eggmobile for me. It's been really nice on the ground. Was one of the big things. I've rarely ever leave ruts because I'm on such a wet ground, and it's going off to a good friend of the farm, so it'll be doing some awesome work there, helping build topsoil and all the good stuff. I have also put in here, this is completely remote controlled now from the farm, so or from your phone. You can log on to the camera. You can also control all the functions of the eggmobile. Well, the nest boxes, the door, the light, they're all controllable from the from remotely. So it's all done in there as well. I was getting a few too many hens just laying on the ground, so I've added these covers on the front to make it darker in there, and it seems to be doing the trick. When you change their environment like that, it's very common for them to be out of routine, and they can start doing stuff like that, like laying on the ground. And what I find is just keep trying new things. You know, there's no set answer, but if you do nothing, well, nothing, your problem's going to remain. So just keep trying little things, and eventually they'll come up with something that'll fix it.